In this video, we're going to be talking about the current market sentiment, the upcoming events, a market update on Bitcoin, Ethereum and altcoins, some interesting altcoins to watch, and my personal strategy going forward in this crypto cycle. Everything for you on your journey through this entire crypto bull cycle. The market sentiment is extremely bearish and it reminds me of the previous bear market that we have been going through. However, that doesn't mean you can't do anything. It is the perfect time to have a plan as some altcoins are actually moving massively already. That's why we can assist you through our consultancy, and if you want to know more, make sure to reach out to us through the link in the description beneath. As I said, the market sentiment is super bearish at this point, and how can you actually see whether it is the case? Well, you can look at the prices, which is terrible at this stage, but you can also use the Fear and Greed Index, which is a metric from 0 to 100, and that actually defines whether something is bullish or bearish or positive or negative. At this point, the Fear and Greed Index is 30, and last week's it was 20 to 25, which shows that retail investors are not interested into crypto as much as they want to be. And if we look at the prices, we can see that ETH against Bitcoin is currently at a market cycle low, while Ethereum ETF is live. Fundamentally, the Ethereum ecosystem starts to grow, but due to the fact that jump trading has been selling 500 million of ETH Bitcoin reached a new cycle low, which means that the interest is just not there. That's why altcoins are currently at cycle lows and the Bitcoin dominance continues to rally to higher numbers, which also benefits on the sentiment being actually negative. But there are some interesting events that are coming up. And the first one is, the key event is that FTX is going to be releasing 16 billion in US dollars in the coming quarter. It's expected to be in Q4. And all the creditors are not going to get crypto, but they are going to get hard US dollars that most likely a part of that wants to invest into crypto, which is a positive thing for crypto in general. The next thing is the Fed meeting coming up on the 18th of September, where they are expected to do a rate cut, which in general is positive for the crypto market as a whole, which means that if the rate cut starts, likely there's going to be QE, there's more money to be into the cycle, which means that altcoins are going to be doing better. Bitcoin is currently consolidating, but it is ready for a new test of the all-time high. And the reason for that is that there is a very small price action level that we can see that we need to break through. And usually when the markets are compressing or when the price is just consolidating and becomes more narrow, that is pretty much the waiting period before the big breakout takes place. And when you're looking at the price action of Bitcoin, you can see that we had that big downwards fall due to jump trading and liquidations taking place, through which the markets were going to $48,000. Bitcoin had a significant bounce back up, but couldn't go through the crucial level at $61,000 to $62,000, which is basically what we call the range low that we have been acting in for the months prior. So since March, Bitcoin's price has been jumping between 61,000 to 73,000, and it can't get back into that range, but once it will do that, it's going to be a big breakout towards the all-time high, as you will see a lot of shorts being liquidated, triggering a continuation towards that level. So what we've seen is we've had this test at 62, price corrected again, some profit taking place, 56,000 as a crucial support level being defined, and buyers were stepping in at that specific level again. And after that, just bouncing back and forth between those two levels. The moment that Bitcoin breaks to $62,000, it's going to be the rally towards new all-time high. On the other hand, if Bitcoin fails to hold 56,000, it's going to have a likely case of dropping back to mid 40K. But ultimately, it is either one of the two, and if it's going to be the upper case, likely altcoins will start to do well, given the fact that Ethereum against Bitcoin has a pretty much similar chart. So what we can see here is that Ethereum against Bitcoin has seen a big downwards fall due to the fact that Jump was selling their ETH, bounced back upwards, rejected at the first old support level, becoming resistance, And from there, we are just, well, aiming to get new buyers in. Whether it's going to be the ETF inflow or whether it's going to be something else, at least we can see that the ETF inflow is pretty positive. For Bitcoin, the ETF inflow is very strong at this point. So the likelihood of Bitcoin breaking through $62,000 is significant at this stage. Now, what we can see is that for Ethereum, we need to have an intrinsic sort of market push or some trigger to get people buying ETH. And if we look at some of these examples, we can see that some altcoins are doing really well, which as a market case is that Aave has been reaching a level of $140, which is the highest level in 2 years at this point. So you can see that altcoins start to wake up within the Ethereum ecosystem. And if you look at a case of more positivity in the markets, you could also say that more and more altcoins are breaking out of levels in such a way that we've only seen this before a year ago. So if we look at, for instance, Rare, which is listed as a future on Binance, it has seen a breakout where it rallied from 6 cents to 35 cents in 1 week, which means a big percentage that we all know as retail investors we can make with crypto. The last time when we saw this was in October, September of previous year. So slowly but surely we are getting to see that altcoins are waking up, and Rare is not the only one, Aave is not the only one. Bitcoin inflow is starting to increase, which means that likely as a market case, we're going to be trending upwards. There are some interesting altcoins to monitor in the Ethereum ecosystem, which is not Aave. Aave has been doing really well, and there's a reason behind the fact that it has been doing great. And that is just measuring the valuation of a cryptocurrency. Lots of people will be discussing Ondo as a great project to invest in. Perhaps it might be the case, but if you look at the valuations, then it might not be the best, which means that if you look at Ondo, the valuation of Ondo is 10 billion. The total value locked in Ondo itself is around 500 million. So the valuation of the market cap is 20 times higher than the TVL. And it's kind of comparable to a PE ratio of a stock that you can start measuring whether something is over or undervalued. But if you want to know that for Ondo, you need to benchmark it towards other projects. And in that case, you can look at Aave, for instance. Aave is currently a market cap of 1.5 billion, while the TVL is 10 to 15 billion, which means that the valuation is completely the opposite of Ondo, where a general valuation is between 0.5 to 1, which means that Aave could be valued from 1.5 billion to rather 5 to 10 billion, making it comparable to the TVL. If you know that, then you also know that you can look at other projects within the Ether ecosystem that might be interesting to look at, because investors are looking for cases where something is undervalued, where there's a revenue generation model, and where there's a very sort of easy way of making a return. So I'm not saying Aave is great, but if you look at cases that you want to get into, for instance, Compound can be interesting, which is a valuation of 400 million and a total TVL of 2 billion, kind of the similar as Aave is. But if you want to go as me, if you want to take more risk, you can go into newer coins and you can go into smaller coins. And I've got two examples for that. The first one is Rocket Pool, which is basically a new DeFi protocol, fully diluted, valued at 250 million, and the total TVL in that project is 3 billion. Another one is EtherFi, which has a market cap of 140 million, which is currently having 5 billion locked into the protocol, but it's not fully diluted, as the fully diluted valuation is 1.3 billion. Now the question is, when are the unlocks going to start? Well, it's not going to be soon, as the first unlocks are going to take place in March. Both of these projects have seen a heavy correction, and it's quite, to be determined where the bottom will be in. But once it starts to turn, these are likely going to take off, as Aave is doing it already. Overall, the markets have been super weak, as August has been a terrible month. Summer is usually weak, and we are approaching a great period for the markets in itself. But the question is, what is my game plan going to be? Well, we just discussed some interesting altcoins to look at, which I have in my portfolio. And if you want to look at the general landscape of the market, you need to look at the total tree divided by Bitcoin chart. What does that mean? Well, total tree is everything outside of the top 10 cryptocurrencies in one index, basically. And that is dividing it by Bitcoin is valued against Bitcoin, through which you can see whether or not that group of altcoins outside of the top 10 is going to do well. If you look at the chart, you can see that there's a very likely case that with the bullish divergence, with the higher time frame support, with a likely breakout of this falling wedge, that we're going to have an upwards trend. But in order to have an upwards trend, you need to have a narrative that works. And in the previous 2 minutes, we discussed DeFi. And I think DeFi has been buzzing around previous times as well, which was during the Silicon Valley Bank crash, Signature Bank crash, which were banks that were used by Web2 tech founders that started yelling on social media that they wanted to get DeFi going, because it is super strange that you can't get to your money when a bank starts to collapse, hence why we need DeFi. Well, we've had the case of the Japanese yen carry trade triggering a big market crash, and since that specific moment you can see that DeFi starts to wake up. And if DeFi starts to wake up, very likely Ethereum starts to wake up. And if Ethereum starts to wake up, that means that other narratives are going to do well. So my strategy going forward is actually the same. I have been fully allocated. I'm fully allocated towards the Ethereum ecosystem, and I'm also allocated towards DeFi, which means that I suspect that in the coming months, we are likely going to have a big breakout coming in for all these protocols. And likely when we get towards the newer coins, when we discuss those, there could be a case that within 1 week they double. So despite the fact that today the markets are super bearish and I'm making this up that I'm saying I'm all in altcoins, it might not feel like the best strategy, but we have seen altcoins breaking out already, and we know what they can do. They can erase losses of 2 years within a few weeks' time, through which I'm very comfortable sustaining this strategy, staying into DeFi and newer coins on the Ethereum blockchain. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're going to be making new content on YouTube, so leave behind what you would like to see on our channel, and I'll see you again next Sunday. Bye.